All right, real quick, I just want to go over what these recordings I'm making are. So I have tracks 1 and 2 are guitar line in direct out of this ditto looper, which is a mono input from the tuner. This one goes to guitar. So those recorded tracks 1 and 2. I did not pan them initially, but then I decided to pan them after in post. And then 3 and 4, I've been going to the iPad for a chord gadget or a drum, whatever background track that I could jam to. And then this recorded directly onto tracks 3 and 4. And then track 5 is a return through 2 effects. And it's stereo. So there's 2 channels there. So that's technically 5 and 6. And then track 6, or channel 6 I should say, is tracks 7 and 8 on the recorder inside the Zoom. Same thing, stereo input, but I'm not going to explain all the routing here I've done that before in other videos. And then so you got 4 there, mono, 5, 6, stereo, 7, 8, stereo, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 12 tracks, 8 channels because they're stereo. So they're all separate. And then you have your main output, which is 13, 14. And then what I do is I have this routed through this cable to my phone, and then the output goes into the phone I'm holding right now in my hand. And then that way I don't need to timestamp anything or try to add things, try to sync them up, right? So I just put all the recordings, and then I can transfer this through the same cable to my iPhone if I want to, and edit in video software on my iPhone directly, sync everything up. But what I do is I tend to just plug this into my iPad because it's a bigger screen, do the same thing, transfer the files over from the Zoom. The reason I use the Zoom to record all these things, is because it has a 32-bit floating point. So I can, it doesn't matter if it would clip going into the iPhone or the iPad as an audio interface. That won't happen on there because it's 32-bit floating point. So even like this one track winds up being very noisy because it comes out of the crossover fuzz. And what the crossover fuzz does is take a high input and a low input, stereo left and right from the onward, and then it crosses over with this frequency knob where the highs and lows meet up. So sometimes it gets really noisy. So one of the channels, the left, tends to be way noisier than the right. So then the 32-bit floating point keeps it from clipping. So that's why I recorded on the Zoom, which is fantastic. And then I have separate files for each. I could have separate files using the audio interface at the same time, so that's not a problem. So I could just theoretically just record it on the Zoom, and if there's no clipping, then use the recordings from the iPhone or iPad or Mac or PC or Android, whatever. And it would be the same thing as recording on there, so not a big deal. I could do them at the same time. That's pretty fantastic. I don't think the Tascam 12 will let me do that. And then, what was the other point I was trying to make? I think that's it. That's why I wanted to make the video, just to show the process. All right. Start the show. So this video is straight into the iPhone, and it's coming out of the USB audio interface port on the Zoom L6 Max. I can record all 14 tracks on the iPhone at once using AUM or a DAW or something. I did try it. However, they won't all go to the camera app, and I'm not sure why, but it chose the last track, which was channel 9, I think, on the Zoom, to go to the camera app when I had all of them engaged as a multiple output audio interface. So when I switch it back to just stereo output, it goes into the camera app, the video app, so that way I can record the live sound into the video while I'm playing. You can see me playing. And then the point of this, I'll show you here in a few minutes, I could just sync it up to the recordings on the Zoom L6 Max hard disk recorder, which is an micro SD card in the unit itself. The reason I want to record directly on the unit, normally I like to go to the iPad, iPhone, Mac, whatever. But in this case, because the zoom is actually 32-bit floating point, if something is about to clip on one of these guitar pedals, like the crossover fuzz is very loud off the left channel, not so much on the right, because the way I have it running through, the gain is just that much. It's like twice as loud. So then it doesn't clip because of the floating point. And that's the whole point of me syncing up and showing this whole video, is showing you my setup. I record directly onto the L6 Max, and then I could take that same cable that's coming out of there and go into file transfer mode and just send the files right over to the iPad, the Mac, iPhone, whatever. And then when I go into Laumafusion, I could just hit sync for the audio, and I'll show you all this as I go along here. So you're gonna see each instance of how easy and quick it is. So the whole process, record my tracks all individually on the L6 Max, transferred them to the iPad, and then I grabbed the video from the iPhone and sent it to the iPad over. All right, not sure what happened there, but yeah, I was trying to say that sending it over AirDrop, and then when I get to the Laumafusion app, I open it up and I do a multicam container, and I'm going to sync it. But what I'm really just going to do is throw the video of the iPhone into as my image, my video, me jamming here, and then I'll grab the audio from the L6, the main output, and drop that in as the main output of the video, and sync them up that way. I just hit the sync button, and then they are just like magic synced up, because it just goes by the audio, and they have the same audio information because it's all tracks going into the iPhone as a stereo channel, and then the main track of the L6 recorder is also the same exact recording, so they match up perfectly. And then the recording on the Zoom sounds way better. So that's why we start recording on the Zoom too. It just sounds way better. And then once it's synced up, then I could go in to Cubasis and add all the tracks, and they line up perfectly because they all start at the same time. And then I get to mix them, and then I send that master track out to the I've been screen recording it just to show the mixing, but I can just export it and then put it back into Laumafusion as a mix. So there's lots of options there. I don't know if I really need to have a video of me playing guitar like this. I mean, clearly I didn't think this through. I'm wearing like a shitty shirt you wear around the house. But anyway, yeah, it's just to show how to do the process. That's the whole point of this video. So you can see how easy it is to record. And for me, it's good because then I can see what I was playing. Obviously, the camera's not facing me, so I didn't really think this whole thing through. I just want to show the process. I can make some better videos. But anyway, yeah, I hope this helps you. All right, here's a screen recording in Cubasis, and you see me dragging and dropping the files into the mix. So there's going to be, I think, 9 total tracks because some of them are stereo. And the whole point of this is to show the mixing console, so you can see, like some of them I go left and right a little bit, as you can see, just offset it a little bit because there's 2 channels of the same thing. The drums and the guitars are both exactly the same when they're clean, so they're not. I don't fully offset them left and right of those. They just sound like, a full mix. So it doesn't make any sense to offset a little bit. And then you can see me bringing in the faders and going left and right channels just a little bit, just to get a good mix. So the whole point of this is you would mix this and then do the mix down and send that back into Lumafusion. So in Lumafusion, I tried mixing there, but when channels are mono, you can't put them on a stereo spectrum. So you can't, put the mood or the freeze or the crossover fuzz. You can't. Well, no, crossover fuzz is stereo, but like the ones that are mono, they only go in the center. Like you can't pan them left or right in Laumafusion. So I had to go to Cubasis to do it. A little workaround, kind of annoying, but totally get it. It makes sense. That's a video app. This is a audio editing software. It makes more sense, a DAW. Anyway, so I go to Cubasis and I wound up liking it because I get all the different colors and having all the faders like a normal DAW setup is so much easier to mix and quicker. So I just did screen recordings so far of that when I'm making my songs, and I could just export it, put it in Lumafusion, and sync it up to the main mix of the Lumafusion. So in Lumafusion, sorry, once I have that multicam container, then outside of it on the timeline, I can just drag and drop files exactly in the same time frame, because I can just see when it starts, or go by the waveform, whichever. And it's super easy to sync it all up. Or I could just drop that mix I made as the main file, and it'll automatically sync it in the Lumafusion app anyway. So lots of different ways to do it. I think that the main reason I wanted to do this too is I'll probably have a little bit of room sound next time I do it, even if it's a small speaker, like a Bluetooth speaker, because then that way I can use a second camera, and then there's going to be audio sync in Lumafusion to all the videos, so that would help out doing more than one view if I wanted to. All right, again, hope this helps someone. Stick around. There's multiple tracks and screen recordings on here. Listen to them all. Skip around, and hopefully it helps you if you're making videos like this. All right, here we're in Lumafusion showing you the multicam container, the synchronizer. So as you can see, I told you you could just drop videos on the left here, and then the top one's a waveform only, so the main audio, and then that way it's not gonna, what do you call it? See there, I just dropped the audio in there, so that's the main recording. And you could drop a video there, and it'll be the audio from it, but you want it to be the main file, the main mix. So that's what I did here, and now I'm going to show you the syncing here with audio. It's going to automatically sync the two waveforms, one from the video from Cubasis, and the other's from the iPhone recording. All right, here's the result of what I just showed you doing the screen recording of LumaFusion. So this is the result of like me clicking back and forth. So there's a switcher in there after the synchronizer, and you can bounce back and forth between the videos. So there's the Cubasis screen recording, and here's the video from the iPhone of me playing guitar. So then once I had that file in there where they matched up, the audio file, now these two videos are synced up perfectly in time. So there's the mixer, and then me playing guitar, it's all in sync now. And I could just tap the screen back and forth to whichever video I'd rather be the main focus right now, and then it just keeps the original audio from the main output of the Zoom that I put in there as the main track. It's pretty great. So I can put the fully mixed version of Cubasis in there, and then that would be the screen recording as well, and then me playing guitar synced up perfectly, because you can see it switch back and forth. It's pretty great, and that's the whole point of the video, just to show that like Laumafusion sync everything up easily. And I mean, honestly, you don't even need Laumafusion. Well, you do for when you're doing video or a video app like that, but you can use a DAW for just syncing all these things up. As far as audio files, very easy. Like, you don't even need synchros. Like the Zoom L6 Max, it records everything you press play, so they're all even amounts. Even if you don't play anything on that track until minute 4, it's still going to start at the very beginning. The WAV file will just be blank until minute 4. So that way, when you sync everything and mix everything in Cubasis or another DAW like Live, Delta Live, or Logic Pro, or whatever, Studio, whatever, good WAV, and you know, it's all perfectly timed, which is great. Editing the video is not hard either. You could do it by eyesight. If you're using a DAW that allows one video, you can, like Ableton does that. Allows more with that example, but you could just see the waveform kind of line up the video's waveform as well to the audio. So you don't really even need Laumafusion. I'm just showing you how easy it is if you did have it. Cool. All right, this portion is just showing me doing some editing in LumaFusion of the process again, just to kind of have a visualization of everything I've talked about so far. Dragging things, dropping them, and just seeing how easy it is to sync things up, and just showing the process basically. Like here's me dropping the two videos, the Cubasis in there, and then I added again a second time in there, one for the waveform, second for the video. Again, I didn't do it to scale. I should have. With the iPad when it's screen recording, it's always standard def, but then it stretches it out because the main video is from the iPhone, so it's widescreen. So everything else that you drop in there is going to be in widescreen. So that's the only downside to using screen recordings is you have to, have yeah, you can shrink things or stretch things out, whatever, crop things, but it's not a big deal. It takes 2 seconds to fix that. So here is the whole screen recording again. I'm showing you the process of my timeline, so you can see everything. On to the next section. All right, here we go. Here comes the final project. Enjoy.